Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Classic Movie Rewind. How are you doing today, Siobhan? That was a terrible.
No, I'm only laughing because you started pouring again. Your pores come through. Did you just spill wine all over yourself?
Not all over myself. Time out. Time out. I am laughing. Spilled it on my nice little wine-colored table.
Hmm. Well, at least it's wine colored.
Okay, I'm coming back. Keep my very plastic paper towels. Okay, I'm back. I'm gonna leave all that in.
Well, the funny thing is that it reminds me of because you can hear the pouring, but unless you know it's wine, like it kind of sounds like you're peeing, and it just reminds me of like in the episode of The Office where they're like the Michael Scott Paper Company, and there's just like the plumbing is all hooked up and you hear all sorts of things in their office because the bathroom from upstairs is right above them.
You see, I would have thought it would remind you of the movie that we're going to be talking about because there's a peeing scene
There is a peeing scene.
in this movie, and that's probably what it sounded like.
That was a much better segue into what we were going to talk about than mine, but can't help
We
what
gotta
comes to
put
my
the
mind.
opposite every episode, though. That's our number one rule of the podcast: wine, movies, and The Office.
From The Office.
And The Office, and
It
some
translates.
stand-up comics we can like work him in there too. Or her.
That's true. We do a lot of referencing stand-up comics.
Okay, so tonight, today, this morning, whatever time you're listening, we're recording at night because it's the time to make it work. We are talking about A League of Their Own. Their own. Last time I said our own and made it personal, but League of Their Own. Great movie.
It is a good movie. It's been a really long time. I don't know if I've ever seen the whole thing.
This is a perfect movie. Like, I can't think of anything that it's just like it's perfect. It's perfect.
That's a strong statement.
It is perfection.
Now I have to spend the next hour, 45 minutes or however long defending that statement.
Oh, I will.
Perfect movie.
It's a well, there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfect.
Yeah, interesting. Well, why don't you give a little synopsis?
Okay, so we are in the 40s, 1940s, and as like the opening scene like tells you, all the men are going off to fight Nazis and Japanese people. I don't know why we never mentioned the Italians. We definitely fought them as well. I guess they really weren't much of a threat.
Yeah, they weren't like personally in our face as much. It seemed
No. Imagine they probably were. They've drunk wine and eaten pasta all their lives. How big of a threat could they be?
I feel like Mussolini was like not great, but
I'm not saying he was a good guy. I'm just saying he wasn't very effective. Probably he got tired a lot. I mean, after you eat, you got to take a nap. Yeah. It's a very heavy meal.
I'm not aware of like
I think
Italy
somebody
ever.
who's very. I very much love Italian food and Italy in general. Love to go there. Not knocking Italians. I'm just saying. Just the lifestyle doesn't seem like it'd be very threatening or would breed very threatening men.
I don't think they've ever been, aside from like the Roman Empire, obviously, I don't think they've ever been like a military powerhouse in modern day.
That wasn't Italy though. That was Rome.
Well, yeah, but clearly what is.
Yeah, I get it.
Italy, yeah. I just didn't want to say Italy. No Italian empire has ever been a powerhouse, and then
And did I say Rome? Have you
pretty
heard of Rome?
Obvious, yeah.
Putting that aside, okay. So all the men are growing off the war, including all the baseball players. So everybody's like worried that there won't be baseball to watch because all the baseball players are going off to fight in the war. Very patriotic. So they decide to do women's baseball. They call it girls' baseball, which I don't know if I like, but that's historical.
See, not perfect.
That is a
not their fault.
fact.
It's a historical fact.
That's not the movie's fault.
That's true.
And so we follow these two sisters, Dottie and Kit, and they join the league, and it's good time had by all. And Tom Hanks is there. He's the manager. He starts off thinking, oh my God, a bunch of girls are going to play baseball. Oh my God, no. In that tone of voice.
I think he's just drunk, but yeah.
Yeah, that too. Drunk all the time. Big alcoholic. But he ends up growing to appreciate them. Very like male feminist type thing, and yeah, that's the movie. Oh, and it ends with somewhere in the middle. the younger sister gets traded to another team, and in the end, they're facing off against each other in the World Series, and the younger sister's team wins because
Spoiler
older
alert.
sister. Well, I figure if you don't want to be spoiled, you're not listening to my synopsis, okay?
There you go.
Because the other sister drops the ball. It's a big controversy.
Quite literally, not metaphorically, but literally.
Literally drops the ball. Did I cover it? It's very, very hard.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple concept. There's obviously nuance, but yeah, that's the gist.
Yeah. Also, not Meg Ryan. Good Lord, Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell was there.
Yes.
And Sharona from Monk.
Yeah, it's a good cast.
Yeah, it was great. Great.
It's interesting because I don't know a lot about this, but I know that very recently there was an issue. They were negotiating the CBA for the Major League Baseball, and so there was like questions of like, is the season going to start? What's going to happen? And you know what? I take offense to the fact that no one was like, I know what we could do while the boys are working out their legal drama. You know, like nobody even thought that we could, because everyone's like, what are we going to do without baseball? And no one's like, bro, we've done this before. Let's let the girls play. But apparently we've moved backwards in the sport.
No, they would just get replacements, like the movie Replacements. Keanu Reeves.
Oh yes, I know.
Football movie. That's what they would do.
I'm just saying this conundrum in a very different context has arisen recently, and nobody thought like, let's do girls baseball. Doesn't surprise me, but just interesting stuff.
I guess is there a professional softball league? Is that a thing?
There is. Yeah, it's got too many S's in it though. It's like the USSSSA or something. Like it's like a ton of S's.
I don't like that.
But yes, there is women's professional softball.
Huh.
Indeed, there is.
They must not be very popular because I've never heard of them.
I think you can actually you can make a living. Like you're not going to make. I think if you're very, very good, you can make like $1 million because it's actually extremely softball is very popular in other countries. So I think you can make a living.
Baseball is. I didn't know softball was.
Yeah, it really
it's the same thing, but they're not.
It's very the U.S. is very good, but in terms of Olympic softball and that sort of thing, it's very popular in Japan. It's popular in Australia.
Wait, is Olympic softball still a thing? Because at one point they were thinking about getting rid of it.
They got rid of it for 8 or 12 years, and it was back this year. And I think it's gone again next year. They're having trouble keeping it around. It's softball and baseball. For the record, it's softball and baseball. They're tied together. I think a few years ago they got rid of it for ballroom dancing, which is just a slap in the face to everybody. Yeah.
That's dumb.
I don't have anything against ballroom dancing, really, but it's not a sport.
In other countries, I know baseball is super popular in a lot of the Latin American countries, and I don't know where Japan and all the Asian countries. I think baseball.
I think the seasons overlap, so you don't get the big name. It's kind of like basketball, except for some reason basketball they tend to get the big names. But my understanding is that in baseball, because the baseball season is 17 months a year, it always overlaps with the Olympics, so you're never getting the big names.
How many?
It's about 17 months. It's a really long season. I stand by what I said. It is so long. There's 752 games, and it's ridiculous.
I agree.
The length of the baseball season is absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
We're thinking of pushing my nephew into baseball to get him to go pro. But I'm like, okay, well, he's got to be a local team because I can't travel that much.
For the record, her nephew is 4, so he's got time.
But he's 4 feet tall at 4, so he's going to be athletic. He's got the build. It could also be basketball. I don't really care too much for basketball. It's just a lot of moving, and the squeaking gets on my nerves.
There's a lot of squeaking. I
could deal with it though, but I wouldn't prefer it.
Yeah.
Football's out. We're a football family. We love football, but football is dangerous.
Yes.
I will watch a stranger get tackled and break a leg, but I'm not gonna watch my nephew do it.
He could be a kicker.
It's
less exciting, but
I took him to Chuck E. Cheese today, and there was a little soccer game there, and he was surprisingly good.
Well, then he can play soccer. Soccer is popular everywhere but here.
I get that Homer Simpson probably wasn't the best goalie, but he was killing it.
Good for him.
Speaking of softball, because I noticed in the movie all the pitchers were softball pitchers, because Kit and Dottie were playing softball in the beginning of the movie. and there was, you know, recruiting people as pitchers, but like the pitching motion in softball, even fast, is very different than baseball. I
It
don't know
is.
if that would translate.
I don't think it would. I used to like there's no way it would train. I'm not saying you couldn't figure it out. Also, the ball is, I mean, for obviously is
The
different.
ball is different, and
It's not.
like,
It wouldn't
it's
be
just
an
a different
easy.
muscle group.
It wouldn't be an easy switch at all. Like softball pitching is actually the
The
natural
natural
motion of your
arm.
shoulder, whereas baseball pitching is like
yeah.
horrendous for your shoulder, for your elbow, for like everything. It's like
that's
it's
why
way
they rest
different.
pitchers between games. They don't. I mean, they only
Right.
have to go so many games without playing.
Right. Which is why you need 75 pitchers on a roster in baseball, because again, there's 492 games. It's ridiculous.
Fair.
But I digress.
Yeah, I feel like every other skill would be okay. I mean, sure, it's a smaller ball, which you would think would just mean you could like throw it better. I would imagine.
I mean,
because your hand doesn't have to be as big to wrap around and grip the ball.
I guess it depends on how used to softball you were. Like if you played softball and they just changed the size of the ball, like that's a massive change, you know? Like that would just
true.
That would
throw you
throw
off.
everything. Right. It's well, not only is the size different, the weight is different. So you're all of that muscle memory that you've built up is probably going to have to change.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true. Although I feel like Marla was definitely practicing with baseballs. I don't feel like she was doing softballs at all. She was like, I am good at baseballs.
Yeah. So one of my big beefs with not just this movie, but I feel like this happens a lot, is that whenever they want to make like attractive actresses look like a tomboy, they just smudge dirt on their, like quite literally smudge dirt on their face. Like I've played sports when I was younger. I played a lot of sports. Never once did I just like have dirt on my face. Like maybe once. Like, but for some reason, like the whole first 20 minutes of the movie where they're like playing baseball, they're just like milking cows, which I don't milk cows a lot, but like never once have I just had dirt smudged all over my face.
I felt like they weren't so much trying to convey that they were tomboys as that they were living on a farm during the very end of the Great Depression.
But it was the same thing when they're playing sports. They're like, we're going to take these girls and make them look grungy, like they're tomboys and they are masculine. So I know, let's smudge dirt on their face. That'll make it like, because they took like attractive women and they're like, what do we do now? Like the modern day equivalent is we'll give her glasses.
Marla never had dirt on her face. I feel like she was always clean. She was like
Madonna?
Marla,
which one's Marla?
The one that was like they stopped to get on the way to the tryouts. The one that they thought was unattractive.
Yeah.
I don't think she was very unattractive. I thought she was pretty.
She just needed to do her hair differently.
Yeah, they just had her hair down and like they had her like scrunched in on herself. But once she was like singing to her boyfriend, she was hot, man. She's doing it.
To her boyfriend.
I'm singing to Nelson. Ain't I, baby? Sure are.
Oh goodness.
I love this movie.
It is a good movie. It's nice to see Tom Hanks' character evolve over time. It's also interesting to not have any type of romantic storyline in a movie. Like there's just nothing.
Oh, I appreciate that. I liked it. In the original script, I think they had like Gina Davis and Tom Hanks kind of flirting a little more overtly, and I think there was like this like romantic storyline with them. But I'm glad they took that out.
Well, she's married. That's
Yeah, and like that's just a douche move. Like her husband's fighting Nazis overseas. That's just you can't do that.
It's just interesting though, because like again, very rarely is there a movie with no romantic storyline, especially one that's tailored somewhat at least towards women. So it's just interesting that they kept that completely out of it.
I mean, there were hints of romance, like Marla and Nelson, they got married, and then there was a few scenes with Dottie and her husband, and.
But there's just no, there's no arc. There's no romantic arc.
No. Which is like the two perfect movies. This movie and Shawshank Redemption don't have a romance in them. I'm just saying that's a theme.
So Shawshank is also perfect. Interesting.
Shawshank is perfect.
Shawshank is a good movie. I'm not knocking Shawshank.
Nothing I would change. I'm like, all right, it's a good movie.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking what I would want to change in Shawshank, but that's a discussion for another day.
It's true. It's very true.
I will say I laughed I laughed
That
out loud when they're on the bus and Tom Hanks is talking to Gina Davis and he says, does he know how good you are? And she goes, who, Bob? Which is her husband. He goes, no, Hitler. And for whatever reason, like that just struck me as like beyond hilarious at the time. I think that was the only time I laughed like out loud.
that's.
I mean, because I'd seen the movie before.
It's this absurd statement, yeah. Like,
yeah.
No,
like,
Hitler,
no,
you
Hitler.
idiot. Here's your sign.
Just
Bill Engvall. There's our stand-up comedian for the
there
day.
you go. There's your comedian.
Got our quota in.
This movie also got me thinking, if they had to do a draft now, can you imagine? Like,
oh, I was thinking that too. I was like, because when they were saying that the baseball players were volunteering to go to war, I'm like, how many of our athletes would actually volunteer? I'm not saying they're not patriotic. I'm just saying that I feel like the class of athletes we have now are a little more spoiled and selfish.
I mean, they just make a lot more money, yeah.
That too. Just feel like they
I
probably
would
wouldn't
just be
the type.
just
some of them might, but I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, somebody did it. It's a sad story because I think he died over there. One of the NFL players, when after 9/11, he went and joined the army and he died in Iraq or Afghanistan or
that's
somewhere.
sad.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. What was his name? Pat Tillman. Very sad. He's got a strong jaw.
Brad is strong.
He's attractive. I feel like he should get a shout out, like that's a really awesome thing I mean, it's a sad story, but like good for him.
Yeah.
Not
good for him, but
not good for what I'm trying to
good of him.
Yes, good of him. There you go. Much better.
Preposition.
Much better. Much better.
Yeah, I just don't know. I just feel like very few people would volunteer.
Yeah,
so there has to be a draft.
I think it would also depend on like what happened. Like if you felt like a personal desire, like what you see going on with like Russia and Ukraine right now, like I can understand why there would be a lot of Ukrainians who are like feel very, very passionate about I need to defend my country because it's obviously incredibly personal.
Yeah, and I feel like in World War II we didn't like get that whole surge of patriotism. Like, yeah, we got to volunteer to fight until Pearl Harbor.
Right, because we were attacked. At that point, you're like, okay, now it's personal. Like now you've attacked us.
Now I gotta go.
Right.
We probably still need to introduce the draft though, if something like that happened, and that's.
Oh yeah, they absolutely would. I don't think enough people would volunteer, but it's also
Thank
amazing.
God they didn't pass that Women's Service Act. That they were thinking about passing.
But just the concept of like, you can draft someone. I understand that you can draft someone, but the concept that you would just take a bunch of like 18 to 25-year-old men who are just like accountants and just like random people and then train them for, I don't know, like a month maybe. I mean, I have no idea what the process is, and then send them off to war. Like that's mind boggling in this day and age that you would just like.
It also doesn't seem possible in this day and age because everything like. I don't know much about the military or anything like that, but I feel like there's a lot of like computers and like technical stuff involved.
Right. Yeah, there's less like men on the ground and more drones and all
yeah, we're not really like infantry like heavy. I mean, I'm sure we have great infantry. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, somebody's got to go in at some point. Like after you do your drone thing, you can't. You got to get in there at some point. But I know absolutely nothing about that.
No. Nothing about warfare at all. I don't want to go to war. I think that's a bad idea. Don't attack us, Russia, or whoever is thinking about it.
Let's all just get along. Like, it'll be fine. Like, just chill, Everybody just chill.
Just chill. Let's bring that oil price down by a lot, please. I don't know how. Just do it.
Stop going into other people's countries. Stay in your own country. Mind your business, Russia.
Don't come in without an invite.
Yep. It's rude.
Invite. Proof.
It's just rude.
It is rude.
What would Emily Post say?
Who?
Emily Post is like the Southern etiquette queen.
I like how you know that and I don't.
Who's like, don't show up to a dinner party without, a kind word, love in your heart, and a covered dish,
Oh shit, I can never go to a dinner party then.
You know what I mean? There's like
dish,
a book. It's like an etiquette thing, which like it is helpful because there's like all sorts of stuff. So it's nice to just kind of like generally know what's like random people have decided is acceptable. But I feel like Emily Post would not be okay with Russia invading Ukraine just for the reason that it's rude and it's
probably
just,
not. To be fair, I don't
Yeah.
think anybody is okay with Russia invading Ukraine, except for perhaps Russia and what is the other country?
China?
Belarus
Oh
and
yeah,
China too.
Belarus.
China too.
Yeah.
Like those are the only countries that are like, yeah, it's fine. What are you talking about? It used to be Russia 600 years ago. That makes
So
sense.
yeah, I saw today that
Side point.
some like a lot or a Russian, like the equivalent of a Russian senator. I don't know what that means. I mean it's like Russian comrade or something. I don't know what they call themselves. But was like
Russian
Russian
politician.
Yeah, it was like Russians founded Alaska, so we want it back. It's not fair that you have it. And it's like, dude, we paid for Alaska like 200 years ago.
Come
Like
and take it, bro.
that transaction don't say that. That transaction has been did. Like there is
They're
absolutely
having
like
problems taking like a small country on their border. They're not gonna try and fuck with us. I will bleep that out.
let's not invite anyone
Mess with
to
us.
take us. They're not yet. Also Alaska and then I don't know. I was going to say it's like really cold, but I guess it's really cold in Russia too, so.
Yeah, I feel like they're used to the cold. Not
Anyways.
gonna deter them at all. Anyway, we're not talking about World War III right now. We're talking about World War II.
Goodness.
That shouldn't be funny, but it is.
Gotta do something to keep your spirits up.
Yeah. Speaking of when Marla leaves, do you know, like when she like says goodbye to her dad at the train station, like the way she does like the wave or whatever she does, it looks like a Hitler salute. And I'm like, that's not what you should be doing right now, Marla.
Poor thing. I don't remember this specific part, but it doesn't surprise me.
It actually probably was like later on. I don't know when it was. No, I know what this note is from. It's when she's when they're doing finishing school and trying to be a lady, and they're doing gracefully and grandly. When she does like she looks like she's doing like a Hitler salute, like doing the march, like Marla. That's what they mean.
Is it gracefully and grandfully or grandly? I listened to it like 10 times and I can't tell what she's saying.
Grandfully is not a word, so I hope it's grandly.
Right. Why did they have to go to like they're playing baseball, they're not doing like press. Why did they have to go to like finishing etiquette school?
Because every lady in this league is going to be a lady.
Yes, but like it just seemed silly to me. Like this just seems like an unnecessary expense at this point.
Oh, I think it was definitely silly, but that's what they did in the 40s when they they're trying to appease the delicate sensibilities of the 1940s culture, who apparently are very, very concerned about women, playing a sport.
Yeah, but it's just interesting because, like, was that training politicized so that people were like, oh, I see why this is okay, because they learned how to glide before they started playing baseball. It just seemed silly. Oh, so silly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely silly. Also, those uniforms were way too short, like, for the 40s. Like, today they'd be, like, they're modest. That's fine. But in the 40s, you're like, that's way above the calf, my lady.
It's also just like not. I didn't have an issue with how short they were, because if they were wearing shorts, the shorts would have been equally as short.
Yeah.
But just the fact that it's a dry.
They could also wear pants, so that's an option. Yeah. Like baseball players wear pants.
In fairness, like I played sports. I played tennis and I played field hockey, and I wore a skirt in both of those. But which is kind of silly because you wear shorts under the skirt, so really you could take the skirt off and it's the functional equivalent. So it's kind of odd, but for whatever reason, that's what they do.
That's the uniform.
Makes no sense.
But maybe it derived from these uniforms. Well, it does look nice.
Well, I want to say field hockey like originated in like Scotland or something. Like I think there's like a kilt aspect to it, but I have no idea what's going on with tennis.
That makes
I think
sense.
tennis is just like too like refined. Like women can't wear pants. We must wear skirts. Who knows?
You would know. I don't know play tennis.
But you've seen tennis to know that women wear skirts and dresses.
Yeah, I've seen it on the television.
On the television, it's there.
I understand the concept.
Yep.
Understand the concept. Okay, here's another thing I didn't understand. Mm-hmm. They had 4 teams, right?
No, they had more than 4.
They had 4 or 5 teams. I wrote down that they had 4 teams.
Maybe they did, because they said 64 players and 16 to a team, so yeah, that would be 14. Yeah.
So, and then they said, hey, and later on they say, hey, if we win this game, we make the playoffs. How do you have playoffs with just 4 teams? Like how do you have teams that are not in the playoffs with just 4
Right, you could have a playoff, but everyone would have to make the playoff in order for there to be a playoff.
Right. It doesn't make mathematical sense.
Yeah. See, it's not perfect.
That's not. That
Not
might be a
perfect.
historical fact, though.
Yeah, but the fact that he says we
Dialogue
have to
fact.
win this game to make the playoffs.
Fine. It's 99.9% perfect.
You just set yourself up, so I had to find a hole somewhere.
Dang it. Okay, one small tiny
One
insignificant
small
flaw
issue,
that nobody
yeah.
but me would have pointed out because I'm anal retentive. My own fault. Care too much.
I'm curious if Madonna was this pre-Madonna being a singer, or was this like?
No, I think Madonna's gonna sing her forever. I think this was like her, cause like she sang a couple of the songs in the movie.
Her first album came out in 1983. That had to have been before this movie.
Oh yeah, definitely, because
What
this
is
movie
this
was
movie?
92 or something.
Yeah.
Which,
How old
but
was
I think
at the
she was
time?
nominated for an Oscar for her songs in this movie,
Huh.
if I recall correctly. I don't know if she won, but I think she was nominated. I'm guessing it's the song at the beginning and the song at the end.
Yeah. 63 minus.
Oh.
So she was 30 in this movie? Goodness. She was over 30 in this movie. I never would have guessed that.
How old was Rosie O'Donnell in this movie?
Let's see. Rosie O'Donnell is. She looks so different now.
She does.
She's 59. So yeah, she was in her 30s too, or just about 30. I never would have guessed that. I would have guessed Madonna was like 22 or something in the movie.
Madonna has just like
off.
aged. Well, before she aged well without help, I'm pretty sure she's had a lot of help.
But now she's got a lot of help and she's not aging well. I don't know. I think
maybe the help is detrimental to her.
Have you seen her recently? Like I just
no,
like
I haven't.
There's a lot going on.
The last time I saw her is when she was like sitting in this elaborate pool, bathtub with like rose petals floating around, telling everybody how bad COVID lockdowns were and how we're in this together in her palatial mansion, floating with rose petals in her bathtub.
Yeah, I saw like Ellen DeGeneres did something similar. She was like at her compound in Los Angeles with her like, pina colada and the palm trees in the background. And she's like, we're all Americans and we're all sacrificing. It's like, no, we're not. Like there are people in one bedroom apartments.
The same.
Right. This is not the same. Like you're having food brought in and you live in a compound and there are people in one bedroom apartments who can't like make it to the grocery store. Like
sorry,
we are not.
Servants have to not come in. Are you down to 2 servants because they can't come to your house commute?
But like we are not the same. And they're just like, I just don't understand why people don't like wearing masks at the grocery store. The person I send to the grocery store wears a mask and they don't complain about it to me. Like,
get over it. Okay, sure. You've never even been to a grocery store probably since you've become famous.
Yeah.
When's the last time you've stepped into a Kroger, Publix, whatever you have there?
I'm not knocking on, it's just this concept of like.
It's just the celebrity culture in general. I feel like they're just so out of touch with people. I think just for the politicians too, like y'all are super rich. You have no idea how the rest of the world lives.
Yeah.
Shut up about it.
Yeah.
But
it's nice that you made a video about it. Like that's helpful.
Yeah. Very, very sweet of you to care and to think we're the same. I wish we were the same. I would love to live in your mansion.
I will say some people actually put their money where their mouth is. Like Leonardo DiCaprio donated $10 million to Ukraine. Like that's a lot of money. Yeah. Even for him. Like it's like let's see. What's Leonardo DiCaprio's net worth? We're going off on a tangent, but still.
Probably a lot. I'm gonna say a lot. I'm gonna say like 100 mil.
260 million. But that's still that's what? 4% of his net worth. I realize it sounds tiny, but that's like still a significant donation, even in light of the fact that he has $260 million. Good for you, Leonardo DiCaprio. Good for you.
Yeah, and Elon Musk is doing his like benevolent billionaire thing too, sending tech over there, I guess.
Yeah, he could literally fund their military for like the next 50 years if he wanted to. I'm not saying that he has any obligation to do that, but like he's got hundreds of billions of dollars. That's more than the GDP of Ukraine probably for the last,
Well, I don't think it's the problem with them being able to afford military being funded, because I feel like people are willing to give them stuff right at this point. At least at this point in time, it's getting it there, and I think logistics are the problem right now.
Well, that, and I think
there's so much funding.
I think the refugee crisis is what needs a lot of funding. Like Poland is taking in literally millions of refugees, and they all need somewhere to stay, and they need food, and they need, everything that a human needs.
People are taking them into their own houses, and I'm like, oh my god, you people are so nice. That's very generous.
Well, Poland is used to getting invaded, believe it or not.
It's true. It's very true.
Not
Poland's
the people
like,
that are there
we
now,
get it.
but
Come on.
they were invaded twice. So at least twice.
Yeah, it sucks. We sympathize. Come on, I got a room in my house. You can stay with me.
Yeah. But that's where I imagine there's a lot of money that needs to be diverted in that direction to make sure
I
that.
have never met someone from Poland that I did not like. So.
Have you ever met someone from Poland?
Yeah, we have a lot of Polish priests.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I have met people from Poland.
Interesting.
Very nice people. Very, very Catholic.
They are Catholic. That's true. Which is interesting.
Came from there.
There must be a lot of Jews in Poland too, just given what happened in World War II.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I don't know.
I don't know if there still are, but
I know nothing about the demographics of Europe in general. Never been. I'd love to go. Let's go to Europe. Not now.
Yeah, now it's probably not the best time.
Although the tickets might be cheaper now.
You know what's ridiculous? It's like nobody could do it. And look, what's going on in Ukraine is atrocious, and every other problem that most people are dealing with right now, not every other, but you know what I'm saying, is not a big deal. But it's crazy that it's like we had COVID, and then it's like immediately after that dies down, this happens, and it's like.
I feel like it seems a little planned, doesn't it?
Well, I think
Didn't it?
it's. Well, I mean, maybe they were planning on doing it earlier, and they were like, okay, we can't do it because of COVID, and maybe.
Also, they might have planned it based on COVID. They thinking people are weak right now. I'm thinking this is the time to strike because the world has been like dead for 2 years.
Yeah, theoretically, you could have done it during COVID, and then, but I guess your troops would also be, susceptible.
Also, China told them not to do it till after the Olympics, so they waited. I'm telling you, that's why they did it when they did it.
Well, yeah, China and Russia were buddy during the Olympics. They, because we boycotted the Olympics like politically. We didn't have any diplomats or whatever the equivalent of that is. So, yeah, not ideal.
I'm sure we had spies there.
I'm sure we did. I'm sure we still do.
Just in general, I don't know.
Sure. Everybody's spying on everybody.
Sorry, we developed into like a topic about, world conflicts and
we can
geopolitical
the overly
stuff.
Political stuff. Yeah.
I feel like this is not really controversially political. It's just like, yeah, Russia bad. I don't think anybody would disagree with that statement.
Not cool, guys.
Also, China bad. Although there are people who disagree with that statement. I'm like, are you serious? Have you seen China? Okay.
I think what people struggle with is separating the people, Russians, from what their government is doing, because obviously there are tons of innocent people in Russia who are just definitely victims of what's going on, and then you've got
with China. I feel like people
Putin, who's being an
can't help where they live.
Yeah, right. So I think that's probably where a lot of people get not necessarily torn on the politics of what's happening, but just torn about the whole situation.
Okay. Well, we don't like the governments of those places.
Right.
Honestly, if people told me that they didn't like the American government, I'm like, all right, I get you.
I've always said I feel like you need to treat your country like your family, in the sense that if somebody else makes fun of your family, you stand up for them, and that's not okay. Now, you can complain about your family to your family. You are allowed to do that. That is your God-given right as a member of your family. But if somebody else starts bashing on your family, you need to stand up, even if it's,
Hitler?
No, but you don't. I mean, obviously, if there's an issue, but I just have an issue with people. Like, there are some really awful, terrible dictators and just horrible people in the world. And then here in America, we're like, there are just so many problems, and it's just so terrible. And it's the worst country ever, and we're just sliding backwards. And don't get me wrong,
it is the definition of first world problems. The definition.
There are many problems. I'm not saying the U.S. is perfect by any means, and there's progress to be made, and there are groups that are oppressed, and I get all of that. But at the end of the day, to not even recognize that, like, we're pretty darn lucky to be where we are, and we live in a pretty great country, all things considered. I think you need to recognize that while still having a healthy dose of, like, we have progress that can be made. But I feel like people just get so used to bashing their own country. There's just like this like new thing these days where
it's cool not to like America.
Right. And it's like, no, you're an American. If you don't like it here, like,
go be something else.
Right. But you don't want to do that. You want to know why you don't want to do that? Because it's actually pretty freaking awesome.
Also, nowhere else. There's this speech one of the last naturalization ceremony I went to at the court when all the immigrants become citizens after going through all the classes.
Yeah.
There's this quote, I think it was from Reagan that the judge quoted, but he said that you could go anywhere in the world, like you can go to France and start living there, but you will never be a Frenchman. You can go to England, but you'll never be English. You can go to anywhere, but you'll never be whatever. You won't be Chinese or Japanese. You'll always be a foreigner. But you come to America, and it's the only place where you can actually become an American.
That's so nice.
It's a great sentiment.
It really is. Because nobody's from here. I mean, now we've been here long enough that people are from here, but the idea is that, very few people, obviously they're Native Americans, but
Like the melting pot really is a thing. Sometimes we don't melt very well and don't mesh well.
right.
But
More of a stew.
There we go.
Groups still stick out, it's not one cohesive group all the time. But
maybe a gumbo.
Maybe a gumbo. Gumbo is good. It's a little spicy, a little warm, yeah.
Yeah, but you still
Some
got the rice base that kind of cools things down a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. Some warmth.
Yeah, you got the
clears out your sinuses sometimes.
Oh, I don't like mine too spicy, but that's just because I'm a wimp. Oh yeah, I thought that was a nice sentiment. Okay, now
that's a nice sentiment.
Geopolitics of the portion. Let's see what else we have.
Yeah, let's think.
I like how they did their hair for each ball game, like acts like and like that 40s hair that really you had to take a lot of effort to do.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't know how to even start with my hair.
Yeah, the way they do like the very deliberate curls and waves in different places.
Yeah, like the pin curls and like the very put together, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're gonna get dirty.
Yeah. One of my biggest pet peeves is when women play sports in movies with their hair down. Because no woman has ever been like, I'm gonna go play tennis and I'm not gonna put my hair in a ponytail. Like that just doesn't happen.
Apparently in the 40s they played baseball with their hair down.
But that's so absurd. Like the concept to me is absurd.
Yeah, but I feel like baseball is a little more like forgivable because you do have the hat on, which kind of keeps your hair.
You have the hat on, but
and you're not like baseball's a very kind of like I won't say it's like a relaxed sport, but like you're not doing a lot of movement.
But there's wind and there's hair. I'm just saying, there's no female athlete.
Maybe they used a lot of hairspray.
Doing anything with their hair down, but this was a different time, so.
I don't know how Ellen Sue's hair stayed in her head. Wait, no, her hat stayed in her hair.
Who is this? Which one?
Sharona from Monk. You know, the one that there's no crying in baseball.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just like pinned, like barely. It's not even on her head. It's like pinned on it. I'm like, what? How?
Yeah.
No matter how many pins you had in that thing, it's coming out if you're running. And she's in the outfield, so she's running.
She's running all over the place. Question.
Answer.
Tom Hanks circa 1992. Right. Attractive? And I don't mean like in the real world. Obviously, he's a movie star. He's not a hideous human being. But like, do you find him attractive?
I don't know if any woman would ever say. You know who's really, really handsome? Tom Hanks.
Well, that's what I think.
I think his personality is probably great, lovable and all that stuff. But like you look at him, he's kind of dorky looking.
Yeah, well, and I also think it doesn't help that like if at least for me, like when somebody says Tom Hanks, I'm like, oh, Forrest Gump. Like I immediately identify him with that. And there's nothing. Obviously, that's a very lovable character, but it doesn't scream like super attractive. But it's just I was looking at him and I'm like, okay, this is like a younger version of Tom Hanks. This is probably peak Tom Hanks, I guess. I don't know how old. And it's just interesting because I was like, he's not gorgeous, but he's also Tom Hanks. How do you become a movie star? You know what I mean? I just found it interesting.
Yeah, I feel like Tom Hanks. I mean, there's a reason he's not the lead in very many like comedy. I mean, romances.
Right.
You've got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, but I don't like. Yeah. That's both Meg. Is that both Meg Ryan?
I think so.
Apparently, him and Meg Ryan go together very well.
Apparently.
They're both, that kind of weird looking. Not weird looking in a bad way. Just distinctive looking is better.
Yeah, I don't know what it's just interesting.
I'm not saying he's unattractive. I'm just saying I wouldn't see him across the room and say, oh my God, I gotta have it. Not like I would with Chris Hemsworth or Chris Evans or, any of the Chris's. Pratt.
Right. Yeah.
What's the other one?
Pine.
Pine. But yeah,
I should have said Christy, just for fun. Just to throw it in there. Get a laugh,
So I look at him like, oh, I bet he's got money.
Who, Tom Hanks or Chris Christie?
Chris Christie. He looks like, he might be in the mob, but I bet he has money. I don't know. He's a politician. I feel like all politicians have money.
Governor of New Jersey. Of all states, I'm not going to get into New Jersey. I'll just not say anything. But
I was like, he might be in the mob, but I bet he has money. I'm not saying Chris Christie is in the mob. I don't know anything about the man, except that he's very Italian.
And yet his last name is Christie.
I'm sure they changed it or something. Maybe his mother. I don't know. But he you look at him, he screams Italian, doesn't he?
He looks like he could be on The Sopranos. Good. Yeah, apparently his mother is Italian and his father is German, Scottish, and Irish. Google is amazing. I have no idea if any of this is accurate information, but Google's amazing.
I'm gonna go with it.
Yeah.
Adding the fact that he's from Jersey, he definitely could be in the mob.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Somebody came out and said, "Hey, Chris Christie just found out he's been indicted under RICO." I'm like, that makes sense.
That sounds about right.
In case anybody was wondering, RICO is what they use to convict the mobsters, racketeering, that type of thing. Lawyered. Lawyered. Your legal lesson for the day.
There you go.
I will say that Telegram guy that came in, before the game was an asshole.
Oh yeah, come on, the drill. It's the middle of World War II. What the heck? Bullshit. I like that Tom Hanks had there was an evolution of his character in that respect, because he was not only did he take the telegram, but he also gave her a hug, which I was not expecting.
Yeah, I feel like I was expecting it at that point. I feel like he evolved by that point, but yeah, the beginning Tom Hanks would not have given her a hug.
Well, and what I thought was interesting about it is that the women were already consoling her. It's one thing if he gave the news and then he hugged her immediately, he was the first one or only one there, so he consoled her. But I thought it was interesting that the women consoled her first, and then he pulled her away from the women to comfort her, which I thought was just very interesting, because a lot of men would cower in that situation.
Yeah, I think it was also that he was trying to remove her from the room just to get her,
Yeah.
Because, the other people still have to go to the game, but still.
But just the fact that he was emotionally intelligent enough to just, I don't know, it seemed like an evolution of his character.
Good for him.
Yes. Good for you, Tom Hanks.
Good job, Tom.
Good job, Tom.
Or what's his name of the movie? I don't even know what his name is.
I don't know. Coach?
I forget his name. Not a coach. Baseball doesn't have coaches. They have managers. Oh my gosh, Siobhan.
But I think there's a difference between a coach and a manager, but I could be wrong about that.
I don't think baseball has coaches per se. I think they just have managers. I don't know. Maybe
the field manager is the equivalent of the head coach. I know there's pitching coaches and but apparently the head coach is referred to as the field manager. The thing I love most about baseball is that you have grown men who are not players, who are coaches, that also wear the uniform. I think it's the only sport where the coach wears the same uniform as the players, which is adorable.
George Carlin is good about that. Can you imagine Bill Belichick dressed from head to toe in football gear?
It really builds a sense of community. It's so good. Or even basketball. You've got all of these super tall, athletic, and then you've just got this old white guy in a basketball uniform with no sleeves. So good. And super long basketball shorts because he's short. Oh, so good. It's got to be the only sport.
It is. I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. It's just
why do you feel the popular one?
Right.
Although I guess baseball is different because it's the only one where the coaches are dressed up in a full-on suit at the game, aren't they?
In which sport?
In basketball, not baseball. Basketball?
Yeah,
a lot of them wear suits.
Yeah, a lot of them wear suits. Yeah.
Right, sir, that is not comfortable. I know it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Maybe for
I like it. I like it when they wear suits with sneakers because it's cute and kitschy. Look at you.
Trying to be a grown up, but you.
Yeah. Well, you're dressed up, but you understand that it's basketball, so everybody's got a shoe deal, so you gotta have your fun shoes. Good for you.
Definitely, your custom made Nikes probably.
Yeah, or whatever they are.
Say whatever you want except for support Hong Kong or whatever.
Huh?
Didn't you the controversy with Nike where they had the customizable thing, but you couldn't do anything supporting Hong Kong on them because China
Hong Kong.
What do you think I said?
I had no idea. I thought it was a person's name, and I was like, "Who's Hong Kong?" I'm like, "Who's Hong? Like, what? What's going on?"
It's a really big basketball player. Did you know that?
Yeah, but it could be. I mean, that could be a name. That's a thing. I think. What else was I thinking about while I was watching this movie?
Well, I have a question at the end.
Okay.
Okay, so you know how she gets to the little Hall of Fame thing, and she sees Kit there, and Kit has all her family with her. When did Dottie's family come?
I don't know, and it's
Why did she
unclear.
go on her own? Like her daughter was pushing her to go. Why didn't you go with her?
Right.
Your mother is obviously old.
Right.
And not used to being on her own because your father just died recently.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you go with her? Shouldn't somebody go with her?
Especially if you're pushing her to go. It's one thing if you didn't think she should have gone, but yeah, if you're gonna push her to go, you should have gone with her.
I feel like somebody should have gone with her. And you probably should talk to like your cousins and say, "Hey, are y'all going? We go together. It'd be great."
Yeah.
No.
So, question.
Okay.
Is the old version of Dottie just Gina Davis in makeup, or is it a different person?
I had this question for the longest time. I finally looked it up. It is a different actress who looks amazingly like Gina Davis, but they dubbed in Gina Davis's voice over her, which makes it look weird.
Yeah, that was my other question because I'm like, that's definitely her voice, but it's a little off. But then sometimes when I look at her, I'm like, well, maybe that is her, and there's just makeup. But I knew it was her voice. So yeah, it took me a while. I was very focused on that for a while. I'm like, is that the same person?
Yeah,
is
that bugs me. I don't like it. Okay, 99.8 because I don't like that they did that. They just either put her in makeup or like use the other actress's voice because you use all the other older actresses' voices.
Right.
People's voices change over time. They get the old lady voice.
Right. The old lady voice.
You're an old lady now. You get a voice for an old lady. It sounds kind of like your voice, but just older.
You're an old lady now. You get a voice.
Maturity in your voice.
It's the rite of passage.
It's like I don't know if you've heard Dolly Parton's latest song, but you can her voice has gotten older.
Yeah, that's how that goes.
Still sounds great, but I'm just saying you can tell oh yeah, she's a little aged.
It's like a fine wine. Let it happen.
Exactly.
People are so afraid to age.
Just embrace it.
As I say, as I smear a bunch of creams on my face. But
yeah, as I dye my hair tonight, get rid of all the gray. Okay, but I am not old. I shouldn't have this much gray in my hair.
I was watching a YouTube video the other day about gray hair because, I had nothing else to do that at the time. And they were talking about like whether or not stress contributes to it. And they think that it actually does. I'm like, this makes so much sense. Like that stress
I don't feel like I'm very stressed out usually.
Apparently genetics is the most significant contributing factor. But then they said stress can exacerbate and make you.
I tell you, that explains why Obama went in with a head full of dark hair and came out with gray white hair.
Every president,
they all age.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, get it. Trump's hair stayed orange, but that's probably dye.
But I don't know if that hair is even his, to be honest. That's true.
I don't.
Yeah. I'm glad women don't lose their hair. Or most women.
Some women do.
Their hair. Yeah.
It gets thinner, I think, with age. But
much older than like men. Like I don't think women's hair thins all that much. Like in their 40s or 50s, it's much older. Whereas men can lose their hair.
When I'm older, I want to have a head full of thick white hair. I'm sure of it because my hair is so thick, and it's turning white.
It'll be lovely.
I'm sure.
You look like a Game of Thrones person or something.
I don't know anybody of Game of Thrones with gray white hair, but okay, sure.
Doesn't the dragon lady have white hair?
Yeah, it was like blonde hair, like bleached blonde hair.
I've always wondered, like, is it blonde or is it white? Because I feel like it almost looks white in some. I haven't seen the whole show, but
it's supposed to be silver blonde, and that's how they translated that. I don't know if it's the correct way to translate it, but that's how they did it.
Silver blonde.
Silver blonde and purple eyes, and they didn't do that either.
Purple eyes. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a Targaryen trait.
No.
Yeah. I knew because
That's true. Actually, I bet a bunch of people do.
I'm sure a lot of people know that fact. Yeah. It's well known.
It's a thing. There's a group of people who are real into it.
Yeah, and then they saw the last episode of Game of Thrones. They're like, okay, this sucks, but okay. Okay, so the big debate. Mm-hmm. Do you think Dottie dropped the ball on purpose?
Okay. I So it's interesting. I'm going to say what probably every single person thinks. I want to say yes, because her sister guilted her in, and that's just like kind of a nice little, gift to her. But at the same time, she doesn't have the personality to do that. Like, she's so competitive and she's so type A, and you learn more from your failures than that sort of thing, that it seems out of character for her to do that. But I don't know. I think if I had to choose, I would say yes. But
Okay, well,
I totally see the arguments.
As a person with sisters, who happens to be the youngest sister, but I just like sister dynamic in general. Sisters are very competitive. And I get it. I like that whole argument with Kit and Dottie in the middle of the movie where she's like, if you're here, I'm not even here.
Yeah.
I've had moments like that. Like, okay, just give me something, all right? And I feel like they go through this whole thing in the movie where Dottie is understanding how she kind of overshadows Kit in some areas. And I feel like during the game, she's playing to win because she's competitive. You play to win. Right. And when Kit is even up to bat, she tells Ellen Sue, the pitcher, high fastball. She can't hit him. She can't not try for him.
Yep.
And that's her trying to win. But I think in that moment with Kit rushing the plate and her like standing there in front of her, knowing that it's one-on-one, it's her versus her sister, and that she knows how inadequate her sister has been feeling this entire time. I think she drops it on purpose.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because a team sport is not the time to settle that debate.
Probably not.
It's also interesting too, because I think Dottie knew at that point that she was done after that. So that was the last chance on that stage for them to have that confrontation. I think her sister played several more years. So I think she just gave it to her because she knew she was bowing out anyway. And if Dottie won, then there's no chance for her sister to then come back and like redeem herself. So that was just the last opportunity for her to actually give her that. But again, I don't think you should ever throw a team sport, regardless of how noble your intentions, because like, not cool, bro.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I don't because she cared very much about her team. That's why she came back, and you know that those girls like became like a little family. And it's very sweet and cute, but at the end of the day, blood is thicker than water.
I guess so.
Although that saying is usually used wrong, because the full saying is blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, which is actually the opposite of what it's usually meant for. But that's neither here nor there.
Nice little tidbit, little trivia.
There you go. Hope you enjoyed that little tidbit.
I guess the last thing, which is an incredibly important point, is that they time how long Tom Hanks is peeing for, but they never tell you the answer.
They just leave you in suspense. And I'm like, well, how long was it? And Doris is like, how long? And Maeve's like, shut up. And I'm like, no, I want to know how long it was.
Well, they also, obviously, they didn't start timing from the beginning, so it would be hard to...
like tack on a few extra seconds.
Yeah.
That's a long pee, sir.
It was a lot. I was on a road trip with friends like way back when. I think I was in high school. And it was a long road trip, and one of the guys got out of the car and like peed on the side of the road, and it was like abnormally long. Like so much so that I remember it to this day. And I just remember being like blown away. Not that I was like intently watching or anything, but just the amount of time
you were waiting for him.
Well, because you could hear it, and it was just kind of like, how is this like, where are you putting all of this? Like, is this I feel like
your bladder, sir.
Right, every bit of liquid in your entire body has got to be out of there by now. Like, how is this even possible? Anyways, that was an important point.
Yeah, I feel like it was important for us to know that.
Yeah.
All right, so should we conclude with, okay, what did you like? What would you change? And what'd you learn?
So I liked Tom Hanks's kind of arc. This, he comes around in a lot of different ways. He goes from being just like a drunk who doesn't care about anything to like genuinely caring about the girls and caring about the sport and their feelings. And I feel like he just like becomes a better man having been through this experience. And I think that's nice. It's probably terrible that I have to take a movie about women and I'm like, I like the male protagonist the best. I really
you like how the male protagonist becomes a feminist in the end.
The male protagonist is just the best thing about this movie about women. Yeah. What did I not like? I don't what I
Tell you this
did.
movie's perfect. It's really hard to find something you didn't like.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I didn't like. I think it's generally an odd, like, I don't think it would fly today. See, I think the issue is that I'm comparing what happened to like how it would play out today. And I realize this is based on a true story or at least a true concept. So what I think about whether it would work or not is irrelevant. But
You mean the
I
movie or the girls in baseball?
the girls baseball, like if they tried to do that today, I think nobody would care at all. Like it would just yeah, so I guess
Like, isn't that softball?
yeah, but yeah,
We
I don't
have
think it
that.
would turn into a thing. I guess what's interesting is there were still men watching the softball because I feel like the reason why they wanted a sport was so that, well, one, because baseball is like America's pastime.
Yeah, and this
But
is before football and like basketball were like professional leagues that people watched, right? I don't
right,
know when
but like
the NBA was established, but I know football wasn't around.
but probably like 75% of people that really care about sports are men and they're the ones that are at war. So it just kind of the concept seems to miss me a little bit.
I feel like there were a
Like I
lot of people who didn't go to war though. Like they still were
right, but
around
then why aren't they playing baseball?
because they were the ones who couldn't go to war because they were not physically fit to go to war. Like I feel like there were a lot of like middle-aged men that wanted to watch baseball,
Right.
but who couldn't go fight the war. Like you got a really
Yeah.
like specific age range of men who are
Oh
actually
yeah.
going to fight the war.
Yeah, it's just I don't know if the concept would fly these days. I realize it's not really a critique of the movie, but yeah, it's a good movie, so it is hard to find. So I didn't like the old lady voice dub thing. It's just kind of weird.
That's my changing thing. That's the only thing I would change.
I think they could have, again, I'm turning this into like just focusing on the one male character, but I don't think we got too far into Tom
Plus, Tom
Hanks's
Hanks
back.
is fair.
We really didn't get into his backstory that much. Like we know that he was like previously very good at baseball and now he's here to kind of legitimize this concept. But like it would have been interesting to get a little bit more.
We got enough. Like he was a really like good baseball player, but he became an alcoholic and he ended up doing some stupid shit, like setting his hotel room on fire and hurting his knee, and then he couldn't, which means he couldn't play baseball anymore. He couldn't go off to fight war, so he was
Yeah.
in rehab for a while, and like they drug him out to be this like manager for the girls' baseball team.
I feel like I missed a lot of this. I must have like got up to get a drink or something during that part. Because it's kind of like
I was getting that one scene with the on the grass that he's talking about the grass and he's
okay. Yeah, maybe I missed that part. I feel like I wanted the like Mighty Ducks experience, where Gordon Bombay has to like tell, you kind of get his whole backstory, and then you realize that like they're not learning from him, he's learning from them, and it's like very wholesome and cute.
I feel like we have to do Mighty Ducks. Yeah. You keep referencing Mighty Ducks.
I love Mighty Ducks. I think it's the best trilogy in cinematic history, and I realize that that's a strong statement, but I stand by it.
Fair.
Yeah. All right, Sarah.
You didn't say what you learned.
Oh, what did I learn? What did I learn? I'm sure. Well, I learned that this is actually a real thing because I looked that up as I was watching it before the end of the movie, where it becomes clear in the like credits that it was a real thing. But I didn't realize that this was like actually a real concept that played out. And I also thought it probably was like a handful of years, but it lasted well beyond when World War II ended. It was like 12 or 13 years. So
like into the 50s, right?
Right, like well past when the war was over. So that's interesting, and I learned that.
Well, there you go. Okay, I loved everything about this movie, so I'm gonna give you what I found was my favorite quote from the movie, which is not one that the obvious quote like everybody knows, like girl, like there's no crying in baseball or whatever. Avoid the clap. But like when Marla is getting ready to go to tryouts, and her dad tells her, "You gotta go where things happen." It just struck me. It struck a chord with me. Maybe because I'm from a place where nothing happens originally. Yeah. And I had to go where things happen. So yeah, I like that quote.
That's good. Good one, Sarah.
I am going to go backwards between the things that I learned and things that I would change. I learned, as I was watching this because I looked it up, that Gina Davis voiced over the older actress, and I would change that because I don't like it. I don't like it. Yeah. Felt like you could just either give Gina Davis makeup, make her look old, or leave the old lady voice in there because she did with everybody else. So yeah. But I love this movie. It's so, I don't know why it evokes so much nostalgia in me. Probably because I watched this so many times when I was younger. Because it was always on TV for some reason. But such a good movie. Love it.
Solid film.
Perfect movie.
So we're stopping where we started, aren't we?
Gonna go ahead and it's a perfect movie. All right, there are a couple things that are like little nitpicks, but perfect. It's just perfect. Close enough to perfect.
That's as close as you're gonna get.
Perfect. All right, so that was A League of Their Own. Cheers.
Cheers.